Okay, now what's important for understanding the end in itself formulation of the categorical imperative is going to be basically thinking about the examples. So, uh, right, so that'll be next. So, what is an example in which you use someone as a means and as an end, not as a mere means? Well, using someone as a mere means is acting in such a way that they cannot consent. Using someone as a means and as an end, you are getting their consent. So I'll use an example based on the one that O'Neill gives. Let's say every time I order food and the waiter gets me food, I'm using them as a means to my end, getting food. Like, hey, could you get me this food? And they're like, sure. And they, okay, I'm using them to get my food, but I'm not using them as a mere means because the waiter is giving consent, right? So then I'm as long as I get their consent, I'm treating them as an ends as well. Similarly, they might even be treating me as a means to an end, which is they're using me to get paid and to do their job. But they got my consent too, because I'm consenting to giving my money to the restaurant and so on. So that's somewhat using someone as a means and as an end. On the other hand, using someone as a mere means in a way they cannot consent is I'll use an example. I find this resonates with college students. So let's say there's a girl I like. For you, it could be a girl or guy, whatever. But let's say there's a girl I like, and so I start hanging out with another person just because I know that girl is around that other person a lot. So I'm just around that other person, act like I'm their friend. Um, you know, when really my aim is to be close to this other girl. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm using that person that I'm acting like I'm a friend to. I'm using her as a means to my end of getting closer to this other girl, and I'm using her as a mere means. Um, Here's a way to make my usage of her as also as an end in of itself, which is, let's say I actually told her of my plans and what I was wanting to do and how I wanted to spend more time with this other girl, and the first person says, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll help you in your plan. Uh, well, then I'd be getting her consent, and then I would be treating her as an ends as well. So that's an example of treating someone as a mere means, at least in the case where I don't get their consent. Now, next part of the handout, try to think of traditionally right or wrong actions like lying, killing, giving to charity, and see whether you think the end in itself formulation of the categorical imperative makes sense of it. So, well, let's use Kant's example where you lie. Let's say you make a promise, and you lie. You say, "Sure, I'll return this to you." You're borrowing something from them. I'll return your bike to you later, and you have no intention of doing so. Okay. Now, when I'm lying to them, in this case, I'm using their bike um, as a, and basically I'm using them too because I'm using their bike as a means to my end. But it's impossible for them to even give consent to that, right? They can't give consent. I never asked. They don't even know that I'm trying to fool them. So in this case, I've used them as a mere means and not as an end. Let's say, let's look at killing. Now we should understand what sort of killing we're talking about. We're not thinking, let's say we're thinking about, I get really angry with someone, and out of anger, I kill someone. Okay. Now in this case, if I'm just doing that, I'm using them as a mere means to my end, okay, of kind of just venting my anger. Um, they never gave me consent to killing them, obviously, so I'm using them as a mere means. So that's pretty straightforward. Um, but in other cases, giving to charity, I'm not using anyone. I'm using my money and giving it to someone else. Um, when I, do nice things for people, then I'm not using anybody as a mere means. So Kant's theory, his second formulation of the categorical imperative, pretty good. How good is it? Think about just a lot of ethical cases and think of whether Kant's theory can make sense of it. Clearly, it makes sense of why rape is wrong because you're in that case the rapist is using someone else as a mere means. If they had their consent, then it would no longer be rape anymore. So right. So that's Kant's other formulation. of the categorical imperative we're thinking about. Now, last part is how might this be relevant to the original trolley case puzzles? Okay, so think about the original trolley case where you can pull a lever, save 5, but then kill 1. Then think of the organ stealing case and the fat man case. Okay, I'm not going to actually give the answer. This is not going to be a test, but people rack their brains like, what's the difference between the two cases? I want you to think about how Kant's second formulation of the categorical imperative might help with that puzzle. So with that, we're done with the Kant and the main points about Kant, and we'll move on to the last video.